Daeho Kim stared at his computer screen, watching the translation patterns shift and change. The research outpost on Epsilon 7 was quiet tonight. Too quiet. He was the only person on duty, and the nearest other human was 3 days away by ship. He liked it that way. The silence helped him think. The alarm made him jump. Red lights flashed across his workspace. Daeho's heart pounded as he pulled up the proximity sensors. Something had just entered the moon's atmosphere. Something big. The computer tracked the object as it fell. Not fell, crashed. Whatever it wasn't flying anymore. It hit the surface about 3 kilometers from the outpost. Daeho knew the rules. Stay inside. Wait for the rescue team. Let trained people handle unknown situations. But the rescue team was days away and he could see the crash site from his window. Smoke rose into the thin atmosphere, black against the purple sky. He grabbed his environment suit and helmet. His hands shook as he sealed the seals. This was stupid. This was dangerous. But something pulled him toward that crash site. Maybe it was curiosity. Maybe it was loneliness. Maybe it was the fact that he studied languages and communication, and here was something unknown calling to him. The walk took 40 minutes. The terrain was rough, full of rocks and dust. His suit's air supply hissed softly with each breath. The crash site grew larger as he approached. The ship was beautiful. Even damaged and smoking, Daeho could see the elegance in its design. It was nothing like human vessels. The metal was smooth, almost organic, with curves that seemed to flow like water frozen in time. Strange symbols marked the hull. The entrance was torn open. Daeho climbed inside carefully, using his suit's lights to see. The interior was a mess. Broken equipment sparked and flickered. And there in the cockpit was someone. She was alive. Daeho had never seen an alien before. No human had, not in person. But there was no doubt what she was. Her skin had a soft glow, patterns of light moving across her face and arms like slow lightning. She had 4 fingers on each hand. Her eyes were large and dark, adapted for dim light. Those eyes found him. She moved, trying to sit up, and her face twisted in pain. Daeho raised his hands, trying to show he meant no harm. That's when she started to move her hands. Her movements were fast and precise. Her 4-fingered hands made shapes in the air, flowing from one position to another. It was deliberate, intentional. She was trying to communicate. Daeho watched, his mind racing. This was a language. A sign language, but unlike any human version he had studied. The patterns were complex, 3-dimensional. Each movement seemed to carry meaning, not just in the shape, but in the speed, the direction, the position in space. The alien woman repeated a sequence of gestures. Her lights pulsed brighter, and Daeho realized she was frustrated. She was asking him something, telling him something, and he couldn't understand. He pulled out his tablet, trying to record her movements. She watched him do this, then gestured more slowly, simplifying her signs. She was trying to help him learn. Daeho noticed something on the floor near her, a device broken and sparking. He pointed to it, then to her, raising his eyebrows in question. The alien woman followed his gaze and made a gesture that looked almost like a human shrug of defeat. Her translator was broken. He scanned her with his suit's medical sensor. The readings made his stomach drop. Internal injuries. Exposure damage. She was dying, slowly but surely. He had maybe 12 hours before her condition became critical. Daeho made a decision. He pointed to himself, then to her, then gestured toward the outpost. She seemed to understand. When he carefully lifted her, she was lighter than he expected. The walk back felt longer with her weight in his arms. The outpost's medical bay wasn't designed for aliens, but it was better than the crashed ship. Daeho placed her on the examination table and started setting up monitors. The alien woman watched everything he did with those large, intelligent eyes. He needed to communicate with her, needed to understand her medical needs, her biology, what would help and what would hurt. But how could he learn an entire language in hours? Daeho sat down across from her and pulled up his tablet. He started with the basics. He pointed to himself and said his name slowly. Daeho. Then he pointed to her, raising his eyebrows in question. She understood. Her hands moved in a flowing gesture, too fast for him to follow. Then she did it again, slower. And again, even slower. She was teaching him. The gesture was her name. He tried to copy the movement. His human hands felt clumsy compared to her graceful motions. But she made a sound, almost like a laugh, and the lights on her skin pulsed in a new pattern. Approval, maybe. or amusement at his attempt. They continued like this for hours. Deho recorded every gesture, every pattern. He fed the data into his linguistic analysis software, comparing it to every language system he knew: human sign languages, ancient dead languages, even animal communication patterns. Slowly, very slowly, patterns began to emerge. The alien's language wasn't just visual. It was musical in a way, each gesture having a tonal quality based on speed and arc. It was mathematical, with precise positioning creating grammatical structure. It was beautiful and complex and utterly foreign. But Daiho had studied languages his entire adult life. He had learned 12 human languages, 3 dead civilizations' writing systems, and countless dialects. His brain was trained to find patterns in chaos, meaning in confusion. The alien woman, he started thinking of her with a human name that matched one of her gestures, Hana, watched him with growing interest. She could see he was trying, really trying, not just recording for later study, but actively attempting to learn and communicate right now. 6 hours into their work, Daiho attempted his first real sentence in her language. His hands moved through the 3-dimensional space, trying to match the speed and arc he had observed. He asked about her injuries, about what hurt, about how he could help. Hana's eyes went wide. The lights across her skin flared bright, brighter than he had seen before. Her mouth opened slightly in what looked like shock. Daiho held his breath. Had he said something wrong? Offensive? Then Hana's hands moved in a new pattern, one he hadn't seen before. And somehow, even without full understanding, Daiho knew what it meant. Impossible, she was saying. You shouldn't be able to do that. But he had. And in that moment, both of them realized that first contact between humanity and the wider galaxy was going to be very different than anyone expected. The medical monitors beeped steadily in the background. Daiho watched the screens, trying to make sense of Hana's biology. Her heart, if that's what the large organ on the left side was, beat in a rhythm different from humans. Slower, stronger. But the trend line was going down. Hana's hands moved again, gesturing to the broken translator device Daiho had brought from the crash site. Then she made a complex series of signs that he was beginning to understand meant something like time and running out. He nodded and signed back as best he could. I understand. Teaching me. Fast. Hana's lights pulsed in that pattern he now recognized as approval. She gestured for his tablet and he handed it to her. Despite her injuries, her 4-fingered hands moved across the screen with surprising speed. She pulled up his linguistic analysis software and started manipulating the data he had collected. Daiho watched in fascination. She was helping him understand the structure of her language. She highlighted patterns, showed him how certain hand positions modified meaning, demonstrated how the speed of movement changed tense and mood. She was a natural teacher, but more than that, Daiho realized she was surprised. Every few minutes she would pause and look at him with those wide, dark eyes. The lights on her skin would pulse in colors he was beginning to associate with confusion or wonder. She would make a gesture that seemed to mean how or why. He didn't understand why his learning speed shocked her so much. Languages had always come easily to him. When other students struggled with verb conjugations, Daiho had been reading poetry in the original language. When his colleagues took years to master new linguistic systems, he absorbed them in months. But clearly, for Hana's species, this was different. She started incorporating physical objects into the lessons. She pointed to the medical equipment, made a sign, and waited for him to repeat it. Then she pointed to her injuries and made different signs. Medical terminology. She was teaching him the words he would need to help her. Daiho's respect for her grew with each passing hour. She was in pain, possibly dying, stranded on an alien moon with a creature she had never seen before. And instead of panicking, she was calmly teaching him her language so he could save her life. He pulled up the ship's computer files that he had downloaded before leaving the crash site. Most of it was encrypted or corrupted, but some files were intact. Medical databases, emergency procedures, all written in Hana's flowing 3-dimensional script. Hana saw what he was looking at and made an urgent gesture. She took the tablet again and pulled up a specific file, a medical emergency protocol. The text was dense and complex, but she started translating it for him, gesture by gesture. Daiho recorded everything. His software worked in the background, building a translation matrix, but his real learning happened in his brain. He could feel the language starting to make sense, the way all languages eventually did for him. The grammar was strange but logical. The vocabulary was vast but structured. The three-dimensional nature was challenging but beautiful. 3 hours later, he attempted to read a simple medical instruction from her ship's database. His hands moved through the signs, his pronunciation clumsy but recognizable. Hana's reaction was even stronger than before. Her lights blazed bright and she made a sound, an actual vocalization that seemed like a gasp. She grabbed his hands gently with her four-fingered grip. Her touch was warm. She looked directly into his eyes and made a long, complex series of gestures. Daeho understood maybe half of it, but the core meaning was clear. What he was doing was impossible. Her species, she made a sign he understood as Velocity, took years to learn other languages. Most species in the galaxy took even longer to learn Velocity sign language because of its complexity. Some species never learned it at all, relying on translation devices for all communication. But Daeho had gone from zero knowledge to basic medical conversation in less than 10 hours. Human. He signed slowly, pointing to himself. Different. He wasn't sure if his grammar was correct, but Hana understood. She nodded in a very human-like gesture. Then her hands moved in what he now recognized as careful, simple signs meant for a student. She told him about the galaxy, about the many species that lived among the stars, about how each species had their strengths. Some were great builders. Some were natural navigators. Some had incredible mathematical minds, but none of them in all of Hana's experience could learn languages like Daeho was learning hers. Why? She signed. How human brain work. Daeho thought about this. He tried to explain in her language, his hands moving through the now familiar patterns. Humans had evolved in groups, small tribes that needed to communicate to survive. Over millions of years, those tribes grew and changed and met other tribes. They traded languages, mixed cultures, adapted and learned. The humans who could communicate best, who could learn new languages and build bridges between groups, survived and had children. Human brains were shaped by language, built for it, hungry for it. Hana listened to his explanation and her lights pulsed in patterns of understanding and excitement. She made a sign he didn't know, so she explained it with simpler gestures. Important. Very important. Galaxy must know. Then her lights dimmed suddenly and she winced in pain. The medical monitors started beeping faster. Her condition was getting worse. Daeho pushed aside his linguistic fascination and focused on the immediate problem. He pulled up the medical protocols from her ship's computer. With Hana's help, he began to understand her biology. Her species breathed a slightly different atmosphere mixture. Their blood chemistry was based on different compounds. But there were similarities too, enough that he could adapt some of the outpost's medical resources. He prepared an injection based on the emergency protocol, his hands steady despite his nervousness. Hana watched him work and signed her approval. She trusted him. It made his chest tight with responsibility. The injection seemed to help. Her lights brightened slightly, and the downward trend on the monitors slowed. But it was only a temporary measure. She needed proper Velocity medical equipment, or at least more advanced treatment than Daeho could provide here. As the pain medication took effect, Hana's hands moved in slower, more relaxed gestures. She started teaching him conversational phrases, greetings, questions, simple statements about the weather, and stars and the beauty of the purple sky outside. And then she asked him to teach her his language, Korean, spoken, words instead of hand signs. Daeho smiled and began to speak slowly. Hello, my name is Daeho. He repeated it several times, then waited. Hana's mouth moved, trying to form the sounds. Her vocal structure was different, but after a few attempts, she managed a recognizable Daeho. Her lights pulsed with pride at her accomplishment. They spent the next hour trading languages. Daeho learned more Velocity signs. Hana learned Korean words. It was slow for her, much slower than his learning, but she was still faster than most humans would be with an alien language. Both of us. Hana signed with a small smile. Good at languages. But you... She made a gesture of explosion, of expansion. Exceptional. Daeho felt himself blushing. Thank you, he signed back, then said it in Korean. Gomawo. Hana repeated the word carefully. Gomawo. Then she signed something new. Friend, yes. Deho replied, both signing and speaking. Friend. As the night cycle continued with the stars bright outside the outpost windows, two beings from different worlds sat together in the medical bay. One dying slowly, one working frantically to save her. Both teaching, both learning, both beginning to understand that their meeting might change everything. Morning came to Epsilon 7, though the sun was distant and weak. Deho had not slept. He sat beside Hana's medical bed, his tablet covered in notes and diagrams. His eyes burned with exhaustion, but his mind was alert. Hana had slept for a few hours, her body healing slowly with the adapted medications. When she woke, her lights pulsed in a greeting pattern Deho now recognized. Good morning. He signed back his own greeting, and Hana's expression showed pleasure. His signing was getting better. More natural. Less like a student and more like someone who actually spoke the language. We talk, Hana signed. Important things. Scary things. Deho nodded and pulled his chair closer. Hana sat up carefully, wincing only a little. She began to sign, her movements deliberate and clear. She told him about the Galactic Consortium. 47 different species all living together among the stars. They traded knowledge and resources. They protected each other from dangers. They explored the universe together. It was not perfect, Hana signed, but it was good. It was peaceful mostly. Each species had their role. The Velocity, Hana's people, were diplomats and mediators. Their sign language had evolved for precise communication, for expressing exact meanings and subtle emotions. They were the peacemakers, the negotiators, the ones who helped different species understand each other. Other species had different strengths. The Torvan were brilliant engineers who could build anything. The Sulari had natural abilities with navigation and could find paths through space that others could not see. The Mariks were artists whose works could move anyone to tears regardless of species. Deho listened with growing wonder. The galaxy was full of life, full of civilizations, and humanity had no idea. Why no contact? Deho signed. Why not tell humans about consortium? Hana's lights dimmed slightly. She signed slowly, carefully choosing her words. The consortium had rules. They did not contact species until those species proved they could work together peacefully. Too many young species destroyed themselves with war before they reached the stars. The consortium watched and waited. When a species was ready, when they showed they could unite and explore with good intentions, then contact was made. Humanity was being watched. The consortium knew about human colonies, about their ships and stations. Soon, maybe in a few years, formal contact would happen. But something changed. Deho signed, reading the concern in Hana's posture. Something bad. Hana's lights flared red, a color Deho had learned meant danger or anger. She signed a word he did not know, then spelled it out in a way he could understand. Kresh. The Kresh were an empire, not part of the consortium. They expanded aggressively, taking planets and resources. But worse than that, they had a policy. Any species that was developing space travel but had not yet joined the consortium was considered a threat. The Kresh found these species and destroyed them before they could become powerful. Deho felt cold. Humans, he signed. Kresh found humans? Hana nodded. Her hands moved in urgent, sharp gestures. She had been a diplomatic courier, carrying a message to a consortium outpost near human space. The message was a warning. Kresh ships had been spotted moving toward human colonies. The Kresh planned to strike soon, within weeks. They would destroy human settlements one by one, making it look like accidents or natural disasters. The consortium wanted to help, but their laws prevented interference before official contact. Hana's supervisor had sent her with the warning anyway, hoping to find a way around the rules. But Kresh scouts had detected her ship and shot her down. I fail, Hana signed, her lights dim with sadness. Warning not delivered. Humans in danger. I fail mission. Deho reached out and gently touched her shoulder. Not fail, he signed. You hear, I hear. We find way. Hana looked at him with those large eyes, and Deho saw hope there. She signed a question. You think we can warn consortium and warn humans? From here? Outpost has communication array, Deho signed. Can send messages far. Very far. Hana's lights pulsed brighter, but then she made a worried gesture. Need send message in Velocity diplomatic code. Very specific. Wrong words, consortium ignore message. Think is fake. Deho smiled. Teach me code. I learn. For a moment, Hana just stared at him. Then she made that sound again, the one that might have been laughter. Her lights danced in patterns of amazement and joy. Impossible human, she signed. Impossible wonderful human. They spent the next several hours working together. Hana taught Daiho the formal diplomatic language of the Velasri, which was even more complex than the regular sign language. Every gesture had to be perfect. Every nuance mattered. A message sent in diplomatic code carried authority and could not be ignored. But there was a problem. The outpost's communication array had been damaged in a solar storm 2 months ago. Daiho had been waiting for repair parts that would not arrive for another week. The array could receive messages but not send them. I fix, Daiho signed. Maybe, try hard. Hana made a gesture of respect. Then she signed something that made Daiho pause. You know what you mean, to Galaxy? Human ability to learn language. This changes everything. How? Daiho asked. Hana thought for a long moment, then began to sign. In the consortium, communication between species was difficult. Even with translation devices, there were always misunderstandings. Some species could not learn each other's languages at all. The Velasri helped, but even they struggled with some of the more alien forms of communication. There were species in the galaxy that the consortium could barely talk to. Ancient civilizations with knowledge and wisdom, but their way of thinking was so different that meaningful conversation was nearly impossible. There were ruins of dead civilizations whose writing no one could decipher. There were negotiations that failed because no one could truly understand the other side. But humans, Hana signed with growing excitement. Humans might talk to anyone. Humans might learn any language. You learn my language in hours. My language is not even hardest in galaxy. If all humans like you, not all humans like me, Daiho signed. I am good with languages, very good. But other humans also good. Better than other species. Maybe, Hana nodded eagerly. Yes, humans could be bridge builders, connectors. The species that helps all other species understand each other. This is valuable, very valuable. More valuable than weapons or ships or resources. Daiho felt the weight of what she was saying. Humanity's place in the galaxy might not be as warriors or conquerors. It might be as communicators, as the people who could talk to anyone, learn anything, bridge any gap. But first they had to survive. They had to warn both the consortium and humanity about the Kresh threat. Daiho stood up and looked at the damaged communication array through the window. I go fix now, you rest. Get stronger, Hana signed her agreement, but added, be careful. If Kresh scouts still near, they might detect repairs. Might attack. I know, Daiho signed, but no choice. Must try. He gathered his tools and headed for the communications room. The array was on the roof of the outpost, exposed to the thin atmosphere and harsh radiation. It would be dangerous work, and he would need to use instructions written in languages he barely understood. But Hana had given him access to her ship's technical database, and Daiho had already proven he could learn the impossible. As he suited up and prepared to go outside, he thought about what Hana had said. Bridge builder, connector. It was a good role, a noble purpose, better than being conquerors or warriors. He climbed the ladder to the roof and stared at the damaged array. The repair would be difficult. He pulled out his tablet and opened the technical manuals from Hana's database. 3 different consortium languages mixed together in the instructions. Daiho smiled. Time to learn 3 more languages. Behind him, through the outpost windows, Hana watched with lights pulsing in patterns of hope and fear. The impossible human was about to attempt the impossible again. And somewhere in the dark between stars, Kresh ships moved closer to human space, unaware that their secret plan was about to be exposed by a linguist and a diplomat who had found a way to speak across the impossible gap between worlds. The wind on Epsilon 7 was thin but constant. Daiho worked on the roof of the outpost, his suit protecting him from the cold and radiation. The communication array stood before him, a mess of damaged components and burnt circuits. His tablet displayed the repair instructions in 3 consortium languages. One was Velasri, which he could now read fairly well. The other 2 were Torvan engineering language and Solari navigational code. Both were completely new to him. He studied the Torvan text first. It was mathematical, with symbols that represented relationships between components. The language built meaning through equations and logical progressions. After an hour of study, Daiho began to see the patterns. It was like music written in numbers. The Solari code was stranger. It described space and position in ways that made his head hurt. But slowly, very slowly, he began to understand. The Solari did not think in straight lines. They thought in curves and flows, in paths through dimensions. Deho worked methodically. He removed the burnt circuit board, compared it to the diagrams, and began to understand what had failed. The solar storm had overloaded the transmission amplifier. He needed to bypass the damaged section and reroute power through secondary systems. Inside the outpost, Hana watched through the cameras. She had insisted on monitoring his progress, signing instructions through the video link when he held up his tablet. Her medical condition was stable but not improving. The adapted medicines could only do so much. 3 hours into the repair, Deho made his first major mistake. He connected 2 components in the wrong order and sparks flew. His suit protected him, but the new damage set his progress back by an hour. He sat down on the roof and took a deep breath. His hands were shaking from fatigue. He had been awake for more than 24 hours now. But there was no time to rest. Every hour that passed brought the crash closer to human colonies. His tablet beeped. A message from Hana appeared in Velocity sign language, converted to text. Rest, 10 minutes. Must stay sharp, Deho smiled at her concern. She was right. He set a timer and allowed himself to sit and look at the stars. Somewhere up there were human colonies, his people, his species, unaware of the danger coming for them, and somewhere else far away was the consortium. 47 species living together among the stars, waiting for humanity to be ready to join them. The timer beeped. Deho stood and returned to work. This time he went slower. More careful. He followed the instructions exactly, cross-referencing between the 3 languages to make sure he understood correctly. The Torvan engineering logic told him what to do. The Solari spatial reasoning told him where to do it. The Velocity diplomatic language held it all together with precise, clear meaning. 6 hours after starting, Deho connected the final component. He held his breath and activated the power. The array hummed to life. Lights blinked green. The status display showed full functionality. It worked. Deho wanted to shout with joy, but his suit's air supply was getting low. He climbed back down the ladder and went through the airlock. Inside, he pulled off his helmet and gulped the outpost's recycled air. Hana was waiting for him in the communications room. She had left the medical bay despite her injuries. When she saw his face, her lights pulsed with excitement. Success? She signed. Success. Deho signed back with a huge grin. They embraced a human and a Velocity, 2 people who had been strangers a day ago but were now partners in something bigger than either of them. Then they got to work. Deho sat at the communications console while Hana stood beside him. Together they began crafting 2 messages. The first message was for the consortium. Hana dictated it in formal diplomatic code, and Deho's hands moved through the gestures while a camera recorded. The message explained everything. Hana's mission, the crash threat, the crash, and most importantly, it included her personal authentication codes that proved this was a genuine diplomatic communication. But Hana added something else to the message. She spoke about Deho, about his impossible learning speed, about what it might mean for humanity's role in the galaxy. She requested emergency intervention not just because of the crash threat, but because humanity represented something new and valuable. The second message was for human colonial command. Deho recorded this one in Korean, speaking clearly and calmly. He explained who he was, what had happened, and the threat the crash posed. He provided coordinates and timelines. He urged immediate defensive preparations, and he told them about the consortium, about the galaxy full of life and civilization, about the future that waited for humanity if they could survive the next few weeks. Both messages were ready. Deho's finger hovered over the transmit button. Once we send these, he signed to Hana, everything changes. No going back. Hana's lights pulsed in a pattern he recognized as determination. Everything already changed, she signed back. Moment we met. Moment you learned my language. Now we just tell everyone else. Deho nodded and pressed the button. The messages launched into space, carried by electromagnetic waves toward their destinations. The consortium message would take hours to reach the nearest outpost. The human colonial command message would take even longer. Now they could only wait. Hana swayed slightly and Deho caught her arm. You need rest, he signed. Back to medical bay, she did not argue. As Daeho helped her walk back, she signed with her free hand. Thank you. For everything. For saving me. For learning my language. For being bridge between our peoples. Thank you for teaching me, Daeho signed. For trusting me. For showing me the galaxy is bigger and more wonderful than I imagined. They returned to the medical bay, and Hana lay down on the bed. Her lights were dim with exhaustion, but before she closed her eyes, she signed one more thing. When Consortium comes, they will test you. They will not believe one human learned Velocity so fast. They will think translator trick or genetic modification. You must be ready. I will be, Daeho signed. Will you be there?
To help me?
Hana's lights pulsed warmly. Always, we are team now. Friends across stars. She fell asleep then, her breathing slow and steady. Daeho sat beside her and finally allowed himself to feel the exhaustion. His body ached. His mind was full of new languages, new concepts, new possibilities. He thought about what was coming. The Kresh ships, the Consortium fleet, human colonial forces, first contact between his species and the galactic civilization. It would be chaotic, dangerous, maybe violent, but it would also be amazing. The beginning of something new. Humanity taking its first real steps into a galaxy full of friends and rivals, wonders and dangers. Daeho pulled up his tablet and began studying the other Consortium languages from Hana's database. He might as well make good use of the waiting time. When the fleets arrived, he wanted to be able to talk to everyone. He was halfway through learning basic Torvan when the proximity alarms went off again. Daeho jumped to his feet and ran to the sensor console. His heart pounded as the display lit up. Ships had just entered orbit around Epsilon 7. 3 of them. Unknown design. Not human. Not Velocity. Daeho pulled up the ship profiles from Hana's database and felt his blood run cold. The computer matched them to one species. Kresh. They had found the outpost. They had come to finish what they started when they shot down Hana's ship. And Daeho's messages were still hours away from reaching anyone who could help. He ran back to the medical bay. Hana was already awake, her lights pulsing red with alarm. She had heard the alerts. Kresh, Daeho signed, his hands shaking. 3 ships. In orbit now. Hana sat up, ignoring her pain. Her hands moved in rapid, urgent gestures. How long until Consortium gets message? 4 hours. Maybe 5. Human colonial ships. 6 hours at minimum. Hana's lights flickered. They were alone. The Kresh could destroy the outpost with a single shot from orbit. There was no defense, no escape, no rescue coming in time. But then Hana's expression changed. Her light shifted to a color Daeho had never seen before. Something like determination mixed with defiance. We have one weapon, she signed. The messages are sent. Kresh can kill us but cannot stop the truth. Consortium knows. Humans know. The secret is out. Daeho understood. The Kresh mission had been to destroy humans quietly before anyone knew. But now the Consortium knew. If the Kresh destroyed this outpost, it would be an open act of war. Will that stop them? Daeho signed. Hana's lights pulsed with uncertainty. Maybe, maybe not. Kresh are aggressive. Proud. Might decide to eliminate witnesses and deal with consequences later. The outpost shook slightly. The Kresh ships were moving into attack position. Daeho and Hana looked at each other. 2 people from different worlds, waiting to see if their impossible partnership would end before it could really begin. The Kresh ships circled above like predators. Daeho watched them on the sensors, his mouth dry with fear. Each ship was 3 times the size of the largest human vessel he had seen. Their weapons were charged and ready. Hana stood beside him, leaning on the console for support. Her injuries made standing difficult, but she refused to go back to the medical bay. If these were her final moments, she wanted to face them on her feet. Try talking to them, Daeho suggested. Maybe they will listen. Hana made a gesture that might have been a sad laugh. Kresh do not talk. They decide and act. They see problem, they remove problem. We are the problem, Daeho said quietly. Yes. Minutes passed. The ships maintained their orbit but did not fire. Daeho realized they were waiting for something. Instructions, maybe. Or they were scanning the outpost, trying to determine what happened here. Then the communication console beeped. An incoming transmission, not from human space or the Consortium, from the Kresh ships above. Daeho looked at Hana. She nodded. He opened the channel. A voice came through, speaking in a language Daeho did not know. It was harsh, full of clicking and growling sounds, but the computer automatically attempted translation, showing text on the screen. Velocity Diplomatic Courier. Respond. Confirm presence. Hana stepped forward and spoke in the same clicking language. Deho was amazed. She knew Kresh language too. Her translator was broken, but her natural ability with languages let her speak directly. The Kresh voice responded. Hana translated for Deho through sign language while she spoke. The Kresh commander wanted to know who else was in the outpost. What species? How many? Hana told the truth. One human. Just one. There was a long pause. Then the Kresh voice spoke again. And even through the alien sounds, Deho could hear surprise. The Kresh had not known about humans. They had shot down Hana's ship because she was carrying information about their plans. But they did not expect to find a human here. The voice asked another question. How did the human survive? How did the human help the Velocity? Did the human have advanced medical technology? Hana glanced at Deho. This was a critical moment. What she said next could determine whether they lived or died. She made a decision. She told them everything. About Deho learning her language in hours. About him reading technical manuals in 3 consortium languages to repair the communication array. About the messages already sent to both the consortium and human colonial command. The Kresh voice went silent for a long time. When it spoke again, the tone had changed. The Kresh commander wanted to speak with the human directly, wanted proof that what Hana said was true. Deho's heart raced. Hana signed quickly. They do not believe. Want you to speak Kresh language. If you cannot, they think I lie. I do not know Kresh language, Deho signed back. I teach. Now, fast. Hana's lights pulsed with urgency. For the next 10 minutes, Hana gave Deho the fastest language lesson of his life. She spoke Kresh phrases and had him repeat them. She explained the grammar, the sounds, the structure. It was brutal and intense with no time for practice or mistakes. Then Deho opened the channel and spoke in Kresh. His accent was terrible. His grammar was rough, but the words were recognizable. I am human. I am Deho. I learn languages. I speak Velocity. I speak Kresh, small amount, learning more. Silence from the ships above. Deho could imagine the Kresh commander's shock. Finally, the voice responded. It asked Deho questions in Kresh. Simple ones at first, then more complex. Deho answered as best he could, with Hana signing help when he got stuck. After several minutes of this exchange, the Kresh voice spoke in a different tone. Less aggressive, almost respectful. The commander said that what humans could do was valuable. Very valuable. The Kresh Empire might be interested in talking with humans, not destroying them. Talking. Hana translated this and added her own comment. They scared now. Scared of what humans might become. Scared of what consortium will do if they attack. Looking for way out, Deho understood. The Kresh had come to destroy evidence and eliminate witnesses. But now they had a new problem. If they killed a human who could speak multiple alien languages, the consortium would know. And humanity would know. The Kresh would face war with both the consortium and an angry new species that might have unexpected abilities. The standoff continued for 2 more hours. The Kresh ships did not leave, but they did not attack either. They waited, probably communicating with their commanders, trying to decide what to do. Then new ships appeared on the sensors. Lots of them. Deho's heart leaped. The consortium fleet had arrived. 12 ships of various designs, representing different species, and at the front was a large vessel with Velocity markings. Minutes later, more ships appeared from a different direction. Human colonial defense vessels, smaller than the consortium ships, but there were 20 of them, and they looked ready for a fight. The Kresh ships were now surrounded by 2 fleets. Both fleets had received the warning messages. Both knew about the Kresh plan. There would be no quiet elimination of humanity today. The Kresh commander opened a channel one more time. He spoke to Hana in their clicking language. She listened and then signed the translation to Deho. The Kresh were leaving. They would report to their empire that humanity was under consortium protection. They would recommend negotiation instead of conflict. And they would remember the human who learned 3 languages in a single day. The 3 Kresh ships turned and accelerated away, jumping to faster-than-light travel within minutes. Deho sat down heavily. His legs felt weak. They had survived. The consortium fleet moved into orbit and a shuttle launched from the Velocity command ship. At the same time, a human shuttle departed from the Colonial Defense Fleet. Both were heading for the outpost. Hana sat beside Deho. Her lights pulsed in patterns of relief and joy. "We did it," she signed. "We saved everyone." "You saved everyone," Deho signed back. "I just learned your language." Hana made that laughing sound again. "Just learned my language. Just repaired impossible communications array. Just spoke to Crash Commander. You are funny, impossible human." 20 minutes later, the outpost airlock opened. A group of Velociri entered first, wearing elegant suits that seemed to flow like water. They saw Hana and rushed to her, signing frantically in complex diplomatic language. Medics began treating her injuries with proper equipment. Behind them came humans, colonial military officers and diplomatic staff. They stared at the Velociri with wide eyes. This was humanity's first real face-to-face contact with aliens. And then everyone turned to look at Deho. A Velociri who appeared to be the fleet commander approached. She was tall, with lights that pulsed in patterns of authority and curiosity. She signed in formal diplomatic language. Deho signed back, introducing himself and explaining what had happened. The commander's lights flared bright with shock. She turned to Hana and signed a question. Hana signed back, confirming everything. The commander looked at Deho again and signed slowly, carefully. "You learned Velociri diplomatic sign language in less than 1 day?" "Yes," Deho signed. "Hana is excellent teacher, and you can read Torvan engineering language and Sulari navigational code. Basic reading only, still learning. And you spoke with the Kresh commander in their language after 10 minutes of instruction?" Deho nodded. The Velociri commander's lights went through a series of colors Deho had never seen before. She turned to the other Velociri and signed something rapid and excited. Then she looked back at Deho. On behalf of the Galactic Consortium, she signed with formal precision, "I officially request that humanity be considered for expedited membership. The galaxy needs humans, needs bridge builders, needs people who can talk to anyone." The human diplomatic staff looked confused. One of them, a woman named Minji, asked Deho in Korean, "What is she saying?" "What is happening?" Deho smiled. "She is welcoming us to the galaxy, and she is offering us a job. Humanity is going to be the species that helps everyone else communicate." He turned to the Velociri commander and signed, "We accept. Humans would be honored to join Consortium, to learn, to share, to build bridges." The commander's lights pulsed with joy. She signed to her crew and they began making arrangements. Medical teams for Hana, diplomatic protocols for first contact, technical experts to study the human outpost. In the chaos, Deho and Hana found a quiet moment together. She reached out and took his hand with her four-fingered grip. "You changed everything," she signed with her free hand. "One human, one linguist, changed the fate of your entire species. You crashed on my moon," Deho signed back with a smile. "You trusted me. You taught me. We changed everything together." Hana's lights pulsed in warm, happy patterns. "I will come back," she signed. "When I am healed, I will return to human space. Help with first contact process. Teach more humans our languages. If they can learn even half as fast as you, they will surprise you," Deho promised. "Humans are good at languages. I am just very good. But all humans have the gift a little." Over the next few hours, the outpost filled with people from different species and different worlds. Humans met Velociri. Velociri met humans. Everyone was cautious but curious, nervous but excited. Deho moved between groups, translating, explaining, helping people understand each other. It felt natural. It felt right. Like this was what he was meant to do all along.